He's a priest of the Diocese of Fall River and currently serves as Catholic chaplain at Columbia University in New York City. He's been experiencing firsthand the violent pro-Palestinian demonstrations that swamped the campus this week. Here with us to give his thoughts and observations about what's really going on with these protests and the reaction, I'm joined by Father Roger Landry. Great to have you back on the program, Father. The whole country watched police clearing out the encampments in Columbia the other day. New York City officials are warning against the radicalization of the young by these pro-Palestine agitators, including at the Jesuit-run Fordham University. What have you seen at Columbia? Are these predominantly students?
So the arrest 2 days ago of 300 people, 180 were students, 120 were outsiders. And so you've got a little bit of a sense of the percentage there. 3 out of 5 are students, 2 of the 5 are outside agitators. And the first protest that happened here was 5 days after Hamas's vicious attacks against innocent Jews outside of Gaza. And while I heard, to my shock, the pro-Hamas chants inside Columbia's campus, as soon as I exited the gates, there was a group of pro-Hamas, and I use that precisely, not pro-Palestinian, but pro-Hamas demonstrators. And I got a lot of the flyers that they were passing out. They basically fell into 3 categories. All 3 were explicitly communist groups that were justifying what Hamas had done out of this neo-Marxist oppressor versus oppressed ideology that says whatever somebody in the category of oppressed groups wants to do against a so-called oppressor is justified, even killing way more than 1,000 innocent people at a party.
What are the Columbia students telling you?
So the Columbia Catholic students with whom I interact by the hundreds each day are telling me that they are super frustrated with the way that the protests have had a dramatic impact on their life here at campus and no impact on the cause for which they are supposedly protesting. So there's been no change in any policy toward those who are suffering in Gaza, but there's been a big change here. They haven't been able to access their campus. Many of their classes went online. Many of their all of their exams now are either virtual or being canceled. And then many of them worry that Columbia's reputation has taken such a nosedive because of this seeming radicalization of everybody that they're quite worried that future employers are going to say, don't want to touch somebody who has graduated from Columbia, even though most Catholic students are just here to work really hard, study, and then to take their education and go try to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, look, these protests are ostensibly about the humanitarian situation in Gaza following the October attacks on Israel by Hamas and the Israeli military response. In your estimation, do these demonstrations reflect that humanitarian agenda, or is it, as New York City officials are now saying, a radicalization of the young and organized from outside of your university and others?
So there was a very interesting Washington Post piece a little over a week ago that showed that there's been great national coordination of all of these protests happening on college campuses. But I would say my experience here, and I visited the encampment every day, and I saw live most of the protests. They were mixed crowds. So some were definite provocateurs, very much in favor of Hamas. Some on the other side were, frankly, sincerely concerned about the humanitarian problems that Gazans are now presently undergoing because of what Hamas continues to try to do in Gaza. And so you do find the whole spectrum there. Likewise, you have a bunch of those who are in the encampments simply because they were upset that certain Columbia students were arrested on April 18th, and out of solidarity, they wanted to go and take their spots. So there are various motivations that bring people there. But what disturbs most of us is there is a sizable percentage of those protesters who are definitely and explicitly in favor of Hamas and the atrocities that Hamas has committed, and definitely anti-Semitic, by their language and by their actions.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, you lay in this kind of neo-Marxist communist mindset that is driving so many of the organizers here who are literally caught on cameras giving instruction to the students. Here's how you tie up the door. Put that barricade here. You all go to the other side and place another barricade on the other. I mean, it's instructional. And my question is, you're close to the action. What do you think is driving it? What is the end game here? It's not just to take over a campus building for a night. Something else has to be at play.
Well, there is an instrumentalization of what's going on in Gaza to advance an agenda. And I think that agenda has been in some of Columbia's humanities department, as well as in other places, which is to deconstruct our present world order, at which the United States is considered the top of that order, and the state of Israel is a satellite of the United States. And so, therefore, to attack what the state of Israel is doing is by strawman trying to attack the world order represented by the United States of America. And this has a long history. When I work with the students here, many of them just don't remember the atrocities that were brought about by the communists and the Marxists over the last century, and to try to let them know that if this neo-Marxism is taking place, it is super dangerous. And for us as Catholics, when I work with the Catholic students, this divide and conquer class warfare that comes from Marx and from Lenin is the exact antithesis of what Jesus Christ himself brought, the Prince of Peace, who tried to gather the tribes of Israel together and wanted to reconcile all things in himself. This divisiveness, this separation, this hatred among classes is exactly what Jesus tried to come to fix. And so to try to get the Catholic students aware of that problem, so at least they're inoculated to that intellectual virus, and then to help them help their fellow students recognize that this type of activism coming from without is not only going to harm them as individuals, but can harm the causes that they very much value. What's happening is not that the Gazans are being helped. What's happening is that Columbia students are being hurt. And as Columbia students are being hurt, similar things are happening in other campuses.
No, that's such an important analysis, Father. Brilliant analysis. And the remedy. Look, this isn't only occurring at Columbia. We're seeing it at NYU, at UCLA, the University of Texas at Austin. All of these, or many of them, have a violent edge that has emerged. I mean, I saw video earlier this morning of a Jewish student trying to walk through the quad and being told, you can't pass through here because you're a Jew. And, you know, and then they've got this surround tactic where they lock arms and kind of encircle these students. I'm sorry, this has no place, certainly on a campus of higher education, but anywhere in America. And now you hear the chants, death to America, death to Israel. Why do you think we're seeing this vehement anti-American, anti-Semitism, not only at your campus, but all of these campuses nationwide, particularly those with Jewish populations, which is mind-boggling to me?
There are historic reasons for anti-Semitism. In this age in which equity is pushed, a people called the chosen people that most others accept as a chosen people are always going to stick out, and they're going to be the subject of envy. And I think we have to look with credit and say our Jewish brothers and sisters study hard and they work very hard. And so it's not a surprise that they achieve a lot in life. And sometimes people who don't work quite as hard look at them with envious eyes. And so that's the anti-Semitic piece of this. I think Marxism has always hated what the United States stands for, which is free enterprise, individual freedoms, etc. And they want to take down that order because they think that it's led to the various injustices in the world. It has led to some injustices. We can't deny that. But at the same time, it's led to some of the greatest human flourishing of all time. But that's resented by the Marxists. The last piece that I'd say with regard to why this is happening now is because we haven't really grounded free speech on our academies. So what is the real purpose of speech and communication? It has to be the truth. If there's not really an active pursuit of the truth, then freedom of speech is unmoored, and it then leads even to using speech to attack groups against whom you're envious.
Well, you know, Father, I always say when religious expression and comedy is verboten, it means the mind has been captured in the soul. And that really is where we are in a lot of these institutions. There's no place for religious expression, and there's no place for authentic humor, because that brings out our humanity. All of it brings out our humanity and our devotion to God who gave us that humanity. And when you take that away, there's very little left but the primal instinct to survive or to beat the other, kill the other, get rid of the other. Before we run out of time, anything good that you're seeing in the chaos and the strife and the mayhem that this last week has brought to your campus and all these campuses across the country?
It's been very edifying to see the students express their great frustration at the bad means chosen, even in favor of what are arguably good ends. Second, among the Catholics, I have challenged them to do what Catholics always do in every crisis, which is first to pray as if lives depend on it, because they do, and to exercise acts of charity, and to do their studies as good Catholic students, and at the same time to try to be emissaries of the Prince of Peace, who always brings peace not as a kumbaya moment, but in the form of a cross. The amount of Catholics who have really stepped up to the plate to be able to do that has been edifying. They've asked me to encamp in front of the Blessed Sacrament to be able to implore Jesus while people have been encamping on the grass in Colombia. They've organized their own rosaries, praying to Mary, the Queen of Peace, asking her to help everybody here on campus. We've come to Mass in greater numbers in order at every Mass to hear Jesus say to us, "My peace I give you, my peace I leave you," and bless us to go in peace, glorifying him and bringing his peace to others. They have really stepped forward. One small little thing a couple of weeks ago with the leaders, they said, how can we reach out to our Jewish and Muslim fellow students during this time as Passover is coming on up? And they came up with the idea of giving each an olive plant with all the biblical symbolism that's involved there. And so we were able to give those plants yesterday to both Rabbi Yonah Haim at the Columbia Barnard Hillel, as well as Imam Ibad Rahman, who's the Columbia Muslim Life Coordinator. They were very touched at Catholics' prayerful solidarity as we, transcending the moment, but also incarnating ourselves in the moment, are trying to bring the peace we have received from Christ that our world and our campus very much need and deserve.
Father Roger Landry, always so eloquent. Thank you for coming on. The Catholic chaplain at Columbia University. We thank you for being here. Pray for your safety and hope you'll come back soon.
Thanks so much, Raymond.